What's going on, everybody? My name is New Yorker, and welcome to episode 6 of Cream Soda Revolutions. This week, I'm going to be talking about a pretty damn new album. This one is from The Heavy, which is another one of my absolute all-time favorite bands. This album is called The Glorious Dead. And I don't have a lot that I want to say before I get into this album. I will throw this out there. This is my favorite album from The Heavy. And for one simple reason, and that is because it is the most concise with its sound. Like, one thing I love about this is their third album, and one thing I love about their first album and their second album is that they pull from a bunch of different influences. And especially on the second album, The House That Dirt Built, each song sort of has like a pretty distinct sound. Like there's a pretty reggae one, there's almost like a punk one, there's a bunch of different stuff. These guys are a rock band, I'll get that out of the way. But one thing I like about The Glorious Dead is how there's one consistent sound, and then it's just different songs can have influences, but it's still more of a concise sound for The Heavy. You know, it's still more of one unified sound, which I very much so appreciate. But let's get right down to business. You know the deal. Go through each song, and blah blah blah. Okay, song number 1, "Can't Play Dead." One thing these guys like doing, especially this album and then the second album, although their first album did it, just not in the same place. But one thing they like doing is they like putting sound bites where it'll be like fake, or maybe they're real. I don't know. But there'll be like a radio announcer reading like an ad for something, or he'll be talking about something, and like super old school, like 40s or maybe 50s radio news guy. And The Glorious Dead starts with a guy talking about a creature of the damned, the she-beast. And The House That Dirt Built, their second album, starts with a similar sort of thing, but it's like, "Don't go in the house if you fear evil." The same sort of like ooh spooky thing. And then they had the same theme, the old school radio theme on their first one, on Great Vengeance and Furious Fire. They have occasionally in between a few of the songs there'll be like a little radio tidbit, and then the album ends with a snippet of an old bluesy song. Oh, I don't remember what it's called. It's called like "Forever My Love" or something like that. But like the clip they use is like the record is skipping, and it's super creepy. I don't know. I love it. Anyways, "Can't Play Dead" starts with this sort of thing again, with like this little bit of like an old school radio monologue about more frightening than Frankenstein, wilder than the werewolf. You know, this really cool, kind of cheesy but very thematic opening to the song. And then "Can't Play Dead" is about like an abusive woman, so it's very fitting. It's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of move there. "Can't Play Dead" is, and I haven't said this often on this podcast, "Can't Play Dead" is a fantastic song to open the album. It has that radio thing has a nice sort of like build up to it, so that it doesn't just start immediately. You know, it has a little bit of a build into it, but then the song afterwards starts pretty well, kind of immediately. There's a bit of like a timpani part, which is awesome, and it's full of life, full of energy. You really understand what The Heavy is going to sound like. The Heavy is rock with some neo soul and some funk. And I think on this album they actually got horn players to play on it. In their previous albums, they'd sample horn parts from other songs. Little bit of bluesy stuff to them. They're super smooth. They're a very smooth sounding band. And "Can't Play Dead" really helps to "Can't Play Dead" really shows that. You know, really showcases like, we're here, we're ready for the show. It's kind of like, it's like an opening number on Broadway. You know, it has that kind of grand scale feel to it. And it's super awesome. It's super lively. It's great. I love this song. Next, "Curse Me Good," which is a little bit of a fun one lyrically, because as far as I can tell, this one's kind of tongue-in-cheek. the idea behind Curse Be Good, which is a lighter song, it's slowed down a bit, it's a lot more stripped down. I really appreciate that with this one. Coming out of Can't Play Dead, they had to have something a little lighter. Like that's one feel that I kind of get with this album is it could very easily be adapted to a musical. You know what I mean? Like aside maybe from like the lyrics might need to be changed, or the story of the musical would have to sort of go through some hoops in order to have all the songs work thematically. But as far as musically, the songs could totally fit in a musical. It's weird. Anyways, so with Crispy Good, the song I'm talking about, on Crispy Good, the lyrical theme is this cool kind of tongue in cheek, like if you're gonna make a big deal about something, make it something worth making a big deal about. Like the point in the chorus is like, if you're gonna cry about something, make it something worth crying for. And if you need to curse my name, curse me good. You know, so like if you're gonna call me out, if you're gonna get mad at me, if you're gonna freak out or whatever, make it worthwhile. You know, which is a cool story. You know, it's kind of like a combination of, on one hand, don't cry over spilt milk. You know, like don't make a big fuss out of something that doesn't deserve it. But then on the other hand, it's also kind of like you know, if there's a problem, speak out about it, sort of thing. It's kind of two messages in one, where if you're gonna cry about something, make it something worth crying for. So if you're going to at all, make sure it's worthwhile. But then at the same point, if it's worthwhile, cry about it. You know, it's cool. I like it, and it has like a whistling part at the beginning. It's cool. It's a fun song. It's a pretty light, fun song. Next, one of the money songs on here. What Makes a Good Man? Now, there are about 3 songs by the Heavy that got a lot of airplay in commercials, like on TV, as well as in video games, on the soundtrack of video games. For example, 2 of the songs from their previous album were in the soundtrack for Borderlands 2. Shortchange Hero, which plays during the opening cinematic, and then How You Like Me Now, which was in a million TV commercials and was also the end credits for Borderlands 2. What Makes a Good Man is one of those 3 songs. It's super it's kind of succinct in that there's not a huge amount of development to it. There's not a huge amount of intricate parts or anything like that. Like there's really 2 drum fills that he uses for the entire song, to give you an idea. And a drum fill is like the sort of thing, that not like playing a beat, but the hitting a bunch of drums in between them. He has 2 that he plays for the whole song. Like there's one in particular that he uses over and over again, but it's appropriate. You know, it's definitely like it's a little formulaic, but it's very radio friendly. It's very commercial. They definitely knew what they were going for, and it's a great song. You know, like it's catchy and it's friendly, like to from a radio perspective. So it's almost, this is a weird word to describe music, but it's kind of approachable. But at the same time, it has a bit of an edge. You know, it's a little, also a little tongue in cheek. Like, just friggin' tell me what makes a good man then, because clearly I don't understand. You know, it's again, it has that little bit of an edge. The backup singers are really good on this song. The few female backup singers that are singing on it are really good, and it's a fantastic sound for this song. Awesome, 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 awesome. Next, The Big Bad Wolf. This one's a little bit more of a weird one. I'm gonna be honest. I had to get warmed up to The Big Bad Wolf. Like at first, when I first listened to the album, the first, let's say, 2 times, The Big Bad Wolf was one of the songs that I was like, eh. And it's mostly because it's kind of corny. Like the musical part of it's pretty cool. You know, there's like this low horn, like trombone section sort of line playing, and they're playing along with the drums. You know, they're doing like the same sort of rhythm. Really, really fun there. But then the lyrics are like the lyrics of the chorus are like, I'm the big bad wolf blowing down your neighborhood. Like it's kind of like super cheesy, but it's the same sort of thing where You know how when you were like 13, how all of a sudden all the stuff you liked when you were about 10 isn't cool anymore? Like I know personally, I knew a bunch of people who all of a sudden, like I played Yu-Gi-Oh when I was about like 9, 10 years old. And all of a sudden when I was about 12, 13, none of my friends who used to play Yu-Gi-Oh liked Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. All of a sudden it wasn't cool. And it was the same thing for so many things. Like Saturday morning cartoons weren't cool. Uh, E-rated video games weren't cool. Like everything became lame all at the same time. And then like 3 years later, sometime during high school, you learn to appreciate all that stuff again, and it's all cool again. Like in high school, I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh with a whole bunch of my friends again, and Pokemon became cool again, and all this stuff sort of comes back to you, and like I could have a serious discussion about SpongeBob because you're like, this was really cool. The Big Bad Wolf, I sort of had that moment where at first I was that 13-year-old kid who was like, oh, this is corny and stupid and I don't like it and it's not cool. And then after I had heard the album about 4 times, it clicked like, yeah, it's corny and it's kind of stupid. But that's the point, it's fun. Who cares? It's not corny to the point of being detrimental, aside maybe from first impressions. So whatever. So now it's fun. It's a fun song. I like it. However, I will say The Big Bad Wolf is one of the songs on here that I can kind of understand if you don't. It may not necessarily be for everyone. Again, if you can't get over how corny it is, or if you can't embrace how corny it is, it won't be for you. Next, Be Mine, the first ballad on this album. And this is a cool one. This is another one. I guess this is sort of a theme for The Glorious Dead, where almost every song is about relationships, but a lot of them are kind of like tongue-in-cheek, like, you're in the wrong, not me, the singer. I'm not in the wrong in this relationship. You're in the wrong in this relationship. Be Mine is kind of like that, but Be Mine is kind of like the reverse. Be Mine is like, I'm definitely in the wrong in this relationship, where like the chorus, at least the way that I'm interpreting it, is the chorus is like, all right, sorry, it's not the chorus. It is a chorus. Like, take all my money, take all my time, take what you need to make you love me, be mine. So it's like, I don't care. What do I have to give you in order for you to go out with me, essentially? Which is cool. It's something that you don't hear in music a lot. Most of the time it's either you dump me, I'm dumping you, or I want to be with you, or I miss you. It's not like, how much money do I have to give you for you to go out with me? Come here, like literally, I'm giving you $100 bills right now. How many more? Come on, please. It's really cool. When I picked up on that, I was like, oh, you sly dog. This is awesome. And then during the bridge when he's like, and didn't I try hard enough to fool you? I love it. I love it. It's great. And it's a cool ballad, it is a cool ballad, and I am hard to please with ballads, but this is a cool one. Next, my favorite song on the album, my favorite song by The Heavy. At one point, it was my favorite song, period, although I will say I normally have a top 5 at any given point, and the 5 are all equal, and that changes like every week. Same Ol'. Same Ol' is so good, and I don't understand why it wasn't a single for the longest time. Like, this album came out in 2012, and Same Ol', if it isn't a single now, then it never was, which is ludicrous to me. It's so radio friendly that it's almost offensive. And if it is a single now, then it only became a single in the past like 6 months. It's so good. It's super catchy. Everyone can like clap and sing along to it because the chorus is super easy to learn. It's oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. And I love the music video because the music video was shot in Japan, where for some reason The Heavy has a pretty good following. Some of the final shots are like them playing at what I think is a festival, and there's this huge crowd in front of them, and it warms my heart because these guys are pretty indie. So like these guys, aside from the couple songs that have been playing commercials, these guys are unheard of over here. Like they only really have a significant following in the UK, and so that sort of thing, just seeing all those people like waving back and forth and stuff to them was awesome to me. And Same Ol', man, Like the drum beat, the super stripped down, like almost like "We Will Rock You" sort of drum beat at the beginning, and then going straight into the guitar and the horns, and it's so good. I love this song. Ugh. I love this song, and like I don't even have a good reason for it. It's just I don't know what it is. Ugh. Oh. Next, "Just My Luck." Now, "Just My Luck" is a song that I've actually referred to earlier on this podcast. Not this episode, but on the Claxons episode, when I was talking about the song "Atlantis to Inner Zone" and how I mentioned that "Atlantis to Inner Zone" sort of flips back and forth between tempos. So it's fast, and then it slows down a little, and then it's faster again, and then it slows down a little, and then it's faster again, you know? And I said, the heavy tried that, and it didn't quite work. This is that song. "Just My Luck" is honestly my least favorite song on here. And I mean, again, I think this is some of the Heavy's best songs, like some of their best songwriting, some of their best songs on this album. "Just My Luck" has a problem in that there's two different themes to it. Same sort of idea as "Atlantis to Inner Zone." There's a slower theme and there's a faster theme. With "Atlantis to Inner Zone," it worked because they were close enough. Like, they weren't a huge difference in tempo. It was only like 10, 15 beats per minute, which isn't huge. So, and thematically, they were pretty similar. So they worked together really well. "Just My Luck," it's intentionally two contrasting things. Like, it's this slow, like, lovey-dovey sort of slow, stripped down section for the slow part. But then the fast part is this very fast, like riled up, like almost angry, almost punk sort of noise fest. And the two of them would work really well in a different arrangement of this song. Like, the way it works right now is it starts off with the fast part, and then the chorus, I guess, is the slow part, and then it does the fast part again, and then it's a chorus again, and then it's a really riled up fast part, and then it ends. What I think it should have done is have the first fast part be longer, combine the choruses together so that it's one long slow part in the middle, and then have your like building up, riled up, long fast part of just like pure bombastic energy at the end. Like, keep everything the same, keep all the sounds and everything the same. Just have it be fast part for a little longer than it is, extended slow part in the middle, and then the exact same, have it end the exact same way it does, and it would be better in my opinion. Because the only problem is like this, you're constantly going back and forth during the song in like 20-30 second intervals between being like pumped up and excited and like fist shaking sort of thing, and then all of a sudden it's a slow like swaying back and forth sort of like something about the way she moves, and then all of a sudden I'm supposed to be riled up again. Like, it's sort of conflicting. It doesn't vibe as well as it could, which is a real shame because the concept is awesome. I love the idea behind it. It just, the execution, man, like the arrangement could have been different. Next, "The Lonesome Road," which, man, I'm amazed this song hasn't been used in a Western yet. And if it has, I apologize, because it absolutely should be used in a Western. Like, during during either the opening credits or the beginning of the end credits, when it's still like just people's names over like that montage of footage sort of thing. One of those two situations, the song would be perfect for. It's a slower one. It's very Western-y feeling, which I will say there's a bit of a tinge in this whole album, which I kind of appreciate. And not like, I've got to be very clear, Western, not country. There is a huge difference. And as someone who doesn't like country and thinks a lot of that stuff sounds the same, there is a huge difference between Western and country. This has a bit of a Western sound to it, does not have a country sound to it. But this one's great. It's a sort of like slow caravan through the desert sort of feel, like in the West, in the Midwest, with like the horses and the cattle, and it's people like sort of like old school folk singing to try to pass the time. It's super cool, and a couple of the lines on here are so clever. Like when it's cold as a lizard's heart, because lizards are cold blooded. I love that. Really cool song, really thematic, but it's not thematic to the point of being corny. Like again, Big Bad Wolf is kind of corny. Lonesome Road doesn't go that far, which I very much so appreciate. Next, Don't Say Nothing. Now, one thing they have to do on every album is have a song with a rap influence to it, and this is that song on this album. This one isn't my favorite of those kinds of songs. Personally, I prefer What You Want Me to Do from uh, The House That Dirt Built. But Don't Say Nothing is still pretty cool. I will say it's also one of my least favorite songs on here. For I guess kind of the same sort of reason as Big Bad Wolf, where the chorus is kind of like them shouting out at who, and am I supposed to be shouting with them? Because I'm not going to. It's this sort. It's kind of like the guy who's trying to rile everyone up at some sort of public event, and it works with some people, but a lot of people are like, "Why are we shouting again?" It has that sort of feeling to it. Really cool horn section though. The horn section parts to this, the wind section is awesome. The trumpets and whatnot. It sounds great. I will say that. Like musically, it's pretty cool. It's just a couple of small stylistic things, like the way the chorus is handled and stuff like that. It's small stuff that sort of breaks this song a little for me. But that is personal opinion. That's me. Maybe this is your favorite song on this album, because I'm sure anyone who listens to my podcast has heard any of the albums I'm talking about, aside from like Fleetwood Mac. Anyway, final song, Blood, Dirt, Love, Stop. One thing with the heavy is they usually have exactly two ballads. In this case, it's Be Mine, song number 5, and then Blood, Dirt, Love, Stop, song number 10. House of Dirt Built had 2. I don't remember for Great Vengeance and Furious Fire. But they have one kind of in the middle and then one at the end. Blood, Dirt, Love, Stop is unfortunately my least favorite of those. And there's a few things that go into that. Number one, the chorus is great. The chorus with the line, blood, dirt, tell me what's it all worth. The chorus is awesome. It's sort of the rest of the song that's a little boring to me. Again, I don't like ballads. And this is finally an example where I can show you guys that I don't like ballads. Most of this song is kind of boring to me. I really like the chorus. Again, I really like the chorus, but most of the song's kind of boring. I don't like the intro. The intro is very like scene transition background music on like a high school play. You know what I mean? Where it's like, and then all of a sudden it's a song and everything's happy and there's a string section and things, And please don't pay attention to the people wearing black clothing that's moving all the things. You know what I mean? Like it's that sort of feeling. So the beginning doesn't quite work. The ending works if there was another song after it. Like as amazing as Can't Play Dead is at starting this album, Blood, Dirt, Love, Stop isn't the best way to end this album. It ends very abruptly. It ends with love, stop, and that's it. Which would work if there was like a build up to it, but it's sort of like energy slowly going down a bit, and then all of a sudden, oh, okay, we're done. What? Like what happened? Almost, Again, maybe it's just me. Personally, I think the song is okay. I like it a bit more than Just My Luck, but only a little. Again, the chorus is amazing. Most of it's kind of boring. The beginning of the song and the way it begins and the way it ends are kind of poor choices in my opinion. But other than that, I do think it's a noble effort. I'll put that out there. I think it's cool. I think it had potential. I don't think the final product was as good as it could have been. Same thing as Just My Luck. Again, Just My Luck could have been amazing if the arrangement was different. But that's every song on the album. I don't have a lot of time to talk about the album as a whole, but that's okay. First thing, again, I want to bring back the concept or what I was talking about at the beginning, where this is their most unified sound. Now, if you listen to their first album, again, Great Vengeance and Furious Fire, which is an homage to Pulp Fiction, which is a quote that's almost the same, although the quote is Great Vengeance and Furious Anger, but close enough. Maybe there's like a copyright thing there or something. Anyways, that song, firstly, cool artwork. Secondly, that album, firstly, cool artwork. Secondly, it has a bunch of different themes to some of the songs, like as far as stylistic choices, where you could kind of tell the Heavy didn't really know where they wanted to go. Like they had some of what they would become. Like The Glorious Dead has a much larger emphasis on horns than their previous two albums. And then The House That Dirt Built used horn section samples for a bunch of the songs. And then Great Vengeance of Furious Fire used horn section samples on like 2 or 3 of the songs. Like you could tell they didn't quite know what they were doing. Even like the first song that uses samples, That Kind of Man, like it has a lot more distorted guitar and noise and stuff to it than in the big picture is typical for them. Cool song, really cool song, but it sounds like very much like a different The Heavy than current The Heavy. And then again, the same sort of thing on The House That Dirt Built. Although The House That Dirt Built's kind of cool because each song sort of has a different sound to it. Like the second track on the album, although really it's the first real song. Oh No, Not You Again, is like just like 2 steps to the left of being punk. Like it's very close. They have Cause for Alarm, which is pretty reggae inspired. It's not quite reggae, but it's very reggae influenced. That kind of thing. And then How You Like Me Now, which I guess is really the closest to current The Heavy, or at least closest to 2012 The Heavy with The Glorious Dead. But then I do really appreciate The Glorious Dead having one sound, having one nice unified, this is The Heavy. One thing I love doing with these guys, and I guess this is going to be my last point before I move on to my music geek. One thing I love doing with these guys. Oh, and by the way, really quick, sorry for not having like fun anecdotes or anything for this one. There's not a lot of information on The Heavy. Like they're not a very big band, so it's not like I have a lot that I can talk about. But anyways, so one thing I love doing with this band is I love showing people this band. I always like showing people new music. I like trading music back and forth between people. Like, have you heard of these guys? No. Have you heard of this guy? No. That sort of thing. And one thing I love doing with these guys is I'll play a couple songs from these guys, and then I'll ask them, what country do you think they're from? Almost unanimously, they'll say the States. They're not. These guys are all British. Like you hear their singer's voice, and you think like 2/3 of the way to James Brown. Like you can tell he's a black guy, which he is. Kind of James Brown-y sort of thing. Kind of like almost like James Brown with a bit of like Rick James in it. Very, very awesome. Like he could be kind of growly when he needs to be. He has a great falsetto voice. He can hit those high notes. And you think this guy's from Arkansas or Chicago or something, But you think the States. You think the USA. Totally not. The dude's from like Liverpool. They're British. I love it. I love it. And it's one thing I love about the music video for Same Ol', because right at the end, he's talking to the crowd and he's like, I'd like to thank you all for coming out here tonight. We're going to be back here on the 22nd of October. Thank you and good evening. And it's like, wow, he's very British, It's awesome. I love that. The one thing, again, though, that does kind of suck is they haven't really crossed the pond, aside from being in, like, hey, I know that song from that commercial, Aside from that, unfortunately. but they're awesome. They're really awesome. And kind of wish more people here knew them just because I want them to tour here. Please play somewhere in Toronto so I can see you live. Please do so. Anyways, I am currently overtime in the unedited version. So I'm going to do my Music Geek and then I'm going to wrap this up. My Music Geek this week is actually, coincidentally, speak of the devil, regionalism. And that is like having an audience in different places. You know, like on when you're starting out, and not that I've made it big in the music industry, and I know this from experience, but when you're starting out, when you're doing any sort of touring and promotion and stuff, unless you immediately sign with a major label, which good fucking luck signing with a major label when you're starting out. They don't want that. Okay, quick tip for aspiring musicians: don't write 3 songs with your guitar and then go phone Universal Music and try to get a record deal. It's not going to happen. Okay, unless you're the next Michael Jackson, it's not going to fucking happen. Okay, they want a complete package that they can just like spit shine and give to their promotion department. That's all they want. They don't want to have to actually spend time cultivating you and helping you record the album and stuff like that. Anyways, so my point is, when you're touring and when you're promoting and everything, unless you're with a major label, it's regional. You know, like say you start in some city, like in my case, I start in Mississauga, and I start building a following in Mississauga, and then I start playing in another city, say Toronto, which is almost the same thing, but anyways, start playing in Toronto. You know, now I'm starting to cultivate an audience in Toronto. Well, I need to keep spreading. So now let's say I play in Hamilton, which is also around here. For those of you who aren't from the GTA, Hamilton's also around here. So let's say I start playing in Hamilton, I start getting an audience there. You know, that's being regional. That's having it's true, period, essentially. You're going to have an audience in areas. You know, when you're starting off, it's cities. But then let's say I've been playing with, say, me, you say it's just a solo act, right? And I've been playing for 5 years, and I have a pretty big audience, or a pretty sizable audience throughout all of Canada. Well, now Canada is a region. Now I can tour Canada, and I'll have a good, reliable audience number, like just sheer number of people coming out throughout most of Canada. That doesn't mean fucking anyone gives a shit about me in the States, or in the UK, or in the rest of Europe, or in South America, or in Asia, or anywhere the hell else. You know, regionalism is at once very important. It's very important that you capitalize on the regionalism you have, but it's also a huge crutch because it can be difficult to spread your regionalism. Like the often what's considered the most important market, but also the hardest market to get into is the States. Being big in the United States as an artist is difficult. You know, there's a lot of people in the United States, and because there's a lot of people, you'd think, oh, there's a lot of people who are going to take a chance on me. No. There's a lot of people who are just fine with what they already have. Yes, there's going to be the 16-year-old music asshole who only likes the super indie unheard of stuff. But a lot of people, especially the older generations, know what they like and they stick with that, and they're not looking for new stuff. And America, you know, the country, is a good example of that for a lot of things, not just music. So one thing that's kind of a problem for me as a fan of the Heavy, and is also a problem for the Heavy as themselves, you know, as the band, is regionalism. You know, they could play tours all over the place in the UK. They could play tours to some degree in some of Europe. And now, apparently, they can play tours in Japan. The weirdest artists get famous in Japan, like Aerosmith. Why? Out of every classic rock band, Aerosmith. Why? Anyways. So these guys can play a lot of different places in the UK, in some of Europe, depending on the country, in Japan. They try to tour in the States. You know, like if they did, it would be terrible. It would be horrible because they don't have that sort of following in the States. They couldn't do the same thing here in Canada. They could not tour Canada aside from like festivals. And even then, you could play festivals because people aren't necessarily showing up for you. They're showing up for a whole bunch of different people. People show up to festivals for one of three reasons. Number one, the headliners. Unfortunately, a large percentage of people fall into that crowd. Number two, because of sort of like a group of bands, like say 5 different bands they like are playing there. Maybe one or two of them's the headliners, but then some of them are also on the side stages. That's me personally. That's how I consider going to different festivals. And then there's again the 16-year-old music nerd who got his mom to buy him a weekend pass to say South by Southeast, or sorry, South by Southwest. I'm sorry, the one here is North by Northeast, so South by Southwest. Yes, sorry. Gets a ticket there, and then he's specifically looking for the super small indie groups. But that's such a niche set of people. You can't market towards that. So it's one thing that's kind of an issue for the heavies. They can't play Canada and the US aside from festivals, because they don't have enough of a following here, which is a pain in the ass for me and the rest of us that are kind of following them here, because that means that we can never friggin' see them live unless we want to shell out $200 to go to South by Southwest. Anyway, that is my music geek for the week, and that is regionalism. And the good things about it, it means you have a guaranteed audience in an area, and also the bad things about it, you have a guaranteed non-audience in other areas. So this has been episode 6 of Cream Soda Revolutions. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in as usual. And be sure to go maybe listen to some other things. If you're not doing anything right now, I mean, I have 5 other episodes. If you haven't heard any of them, they're pretty cool. Maybe go listen to them again. Maybe you'll finally catch what I said about that guy that one time. Thanks for tuning in. I am New Yorker. You guys have been awesome. Good night.